guys, Jenna here. Back in my Urban Myths and Legends reading episode, I discovered that the abandoned castle up in Lamington was heavily rumored to be home of a vampire in the 60s and 70s due to the mysterious disappearance of local young girls. Since it's only 3 hours out, I'm taking you guys with me to investigate it today. Now, before we head out, we're gonna do a little research and recruit the help of 2 specialists. Let's head inside. Professor Nash, good morning.
Hi, Jenna. My colleagues have been waiting.
So, I consulted with my archaeology professor who put me in touch with 2 really amazing researchers.
This is Rickham, an expert in paleozoology, and Dr. Emma Lynn, a fellow anthropological archaeologist.
Hi there.
It's a pleasure.
Hi, nice to meet you. We've been corresponding for a few months now, and they've actually flown out here to the middle of nowhere to go with me, which blows my freaking mind.
I've already gone over the blueprints and layout of Lamington Castle with Mr. Rickham and Dr. Lynn, but feel free to let me know if you have any further questions. I'll leave you 3 to it.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you both again for being here.
It's a pleasure. It's a nice little weapon you've got there.
Well, I filled this baby up with holy water from my local church. Shout out to Father Thomas. This shoots up to 50 feet away as tested in my water war video, so be sure to check that out if you haven't already seen it. Alright, so would you mind explaining a little more about your field of work and its relation to vampires?
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Rickham. I specialize in ethology and paleozoology, which basically means I do research on archaeological sites to study animal remains and figure out how they died. I also study animal behaviors in their natural habitat. I am part Algonquin, so when I was young, my uncles taught me how to read surrounding signs for different animals to tell them apart. These types of skills really help me in my line of work, and I've always thought they'd be useful for tracking down and discovering new creatures. Yeah, including maybe a vampire.
I'm Emma Lynn, and I specialize in anthropological archaeology, which involves excavation and artifact research to understand past civilizations and how humans have evolved to what we are today. I collect lots of different types of data on my travels and have come across so many vampire-related beliefs and rituals that I started compiling them to see if there are patterns or truths to be found. Crane and I actually met in Egypt when I was studying about the Ka.
Yeah, I remember. God, it was a blast.
What's Ka?
It's the belief that one must beautifully preserve one's body after death to placate the soul, otherwise it will leave the tomb to feed on blood and life force for sustenance.
That would explain the elaborate tombs and pyramids. You know, I wonder if that inspired the events in the Queen of the Dead, which, spoilers, infers that vampires originated in Egypt.
Quite possible.
You guys, we're going to be in great hands with these 2 today. I see you have quite a spread here. Can you go through some of these? Like, what's in this little pouch?
You see, in some cultures like Haiti and Trinidad, they believe that you could stop a vampire attack by throwing seeds or grains on the ground, and the vampire will be compelled to stop and count them, or you take their time to ingest each one because they contain the germ of new life.
That sounds like the prisoner in Dracula, where he catches and eats flies because he was obsessed with consuming living creatures for eternal life.
In Chinese culture, there's a similar belief that if you throw a bag of coins, then a vampire would be compelled to stop and count them.
Heck, if you threw a bag of coins at me, I'd stop and count them too.
It's curious to think about why and how these beliefs come about. Have you ever heard of the Chinese hopping vampires?
No, what are hopping vampires?
Okay, so during the Qing Dynasty, the corpses of migrant workers needed to be returned to their homeland, or it was believed that their spirits would become restless. Families would pay a Taoist priest to perform a ritual to reanimate the corpses so they could go home for a proper burial. Due to rigor mortis, the corpses were forced to hop home. They often traveled by night to slow down decay and would attack anything living they encountered to consume their qi, or life force, to fill the loss of their own.
That would explain why vampires are nocturnal. These sound like a hybrid zombie vampire.
They do. The Jiangxi are very unique. But we believe this particular legend was based on real corpse drivers that tied a couple corpses standing upright on bamboo poles carried by 2 men across long distances, and the bouncing of the corpses made it look like they were hopping to any onlookers.
What?
When you break down the stories into their real-life counterparts, it takes away a bit of the supernatural mystery behind it all.
Isn't that like superstitions going around during the Black Plague in medieval Europe?
Yeah, at the time, people were dying faster than corpses could be buried, and a lot of people didn't know the symptoms of the plague and normal biological decomposition. Common symptoms were bloody mouth lesions, swollen lymphs, and coughing up blood. So when they saw bodies laying around with bloated faces and bloody mouths, well, they assumed it was all the work of vampires.
I guess when there's a lot of sudden death, people are quicker to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, right. We know now that the spread was actually by infected rats and fleas. But at the time, people were quick to drive stakes into the heart of corpses suspected to be vampires. Funny enough, I've got one of those handy with me today.
I brought a stake too. This one is made of peachwood because its essence is believed to subjugate evil auras and deter evil spirits.
Speaking of vampire deterring objects, I brought with me this garlic string necklace I made and a silver cross. Are these actually useful or just pop culture garbage?
Well, garlic is considered a powerful medicinal herb with healing properties, so I'd say it has its merits.
And the silver cross has been considered a protective charm against evil spirits for hundreds of years. It'd be great to have one with you. I brought a silver dagger myself.
Is there a particular reason why silver weapons are useful? In the Hellsing anime, Alucard always said he was shooting vampires with bullets made from melted Christian crosses. Is it like an allergy?
Well, I think having weapons forged from melted down church silver means something of a holy weapon to fight against unholy creatures. And like what Dr. Lin said about garlic, silver is an antibacterial metal with unique properties. Decaying flesh contains quite a bit of hydrogen sulfide. And when silver comes into contact with it, silver sulfide is created. This gives silver a blackened appearance, so you'll know when you've come into contact with something that's, not alive.
That's so crazy. Who would have thought chemistry class would come in handy today?
The Greek goddess Artemis of the hunt had a silver bow and arrow. They never missed their mark and destroyed all targets. And she was apparently involved with the first Greek vampire.
Don't tell me she was the first vampire slayer.
Well, not exactly. The story says that there was an adventurer that came to the temple of Apollo, the god of the sun, to have his fortune told. While there, he and one of the temple maidens fell in love and planned to run away and get married. Apollo was enraged at the adventurer for taking one of his temple maidens and cursed him so his skin would burn every time he stepped into the sunlight.
Oh, that would explain the sun allergy.
If I remember correctly, he couldn't meet his lover the next morning as planned, and happened to hide in a cave of Hades, who offered him and his lover protection in the underworld if he brought back the silver bow and arrow of Artemis. Hades gave him a wooden bow and arrows to hunt animals to give as offerings to Artemis and draw her close.
That's right. He started shooting swans, used their blood to write letters to his lover, and offered the swans to Artemis for many days until the goddess came down to him. After taking her silver bow and arrows and attempting to run, she cursed him so all silver would burn his skin. He dropped the searing bow and arrows and begged Artemis to forgive him and explained his situation. She pitied him and made him an offer. If he and his lover escape Apollo and worship her forever, she would make him a great hunter with the strength of a god and fangs to help him draw blood for his letters. And he agreed, or so the legend goes.
Wow, that definitely covers the silver allergy.
Yeah, and bloody fangs.
Yes, and the fangs. What's this knotted rope for? Is it for climbing down somewhere or tying up a vampire?
Well, rope can be handy for many things, including those. Vampires with a fastidious nature will be compelled to stop and count or untie the knots before moving on, like the counting of the coin or seeds.
Besides rope, thorny vines were used a lot to wrap corpses thought to be vampires before burial. I've actually got my trusty thorned whip here for restraining any vampire friends we may encounter.
How very Indiana Jones.
It's much more convenient than just carrying vines that might tangle.
Very true. Our defenses need to be ready to go at any time. Total sidebar, but we need to kickstart Indiana Jones the Vampire Slayer now. Getting back on topic, what are these little papers for? Are we gonna light some fires?
Well, if we're going to light a fire to scare something off, we'd be better off lighting one of those flares over there. These are paper talismans for me to write spells and attach them to the vampire's forehead to immobilize them.
That would be a great tag team attack with Mr. Rickham's Vine Whip. Now, this has all been really, really fascinating, but we should start heading out or we'll be here all day. Are there any other things you're bringing for our little excursion?
Yeah, I've got a crowbar for opening any doors in crypts, pack of matches, and hard hats for everyone in case of falling debris.
I brought some flashlights and batteries, a mirror, brushes, a small pickaxe, a camera, and a pair of gloves for everyone.
Cool. I've also got a flashlight, pocket knife, an EMF reader, handkerchief, and some salt. All right, I think this concludes our prep. We're gonna gather our things up and hit the road. Talk to you guys soon.